It's finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show, presented this week by the Match Series, which is headed to Monmouth Park Sunday for the Mr. Prospector Stakes. This is the male sprint division. This is a really cool event if you haven't found out more about it and followed it. Very competitive, so it's moving to Monmouth Park this weekend, the Match Series. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. We're glad to have you with us. Ray is in Washington, D.C., and that's an important thing to note because we have something to celebrate today, and I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. First, let's talk about Saturday's celebration of the Triple Crown, the 13th winner in Justify. Of course, you've got to have the Justify hat. When you look back on this one, Ray, what stood out to you?
Well, you know, before the Triple Crown even began, this horse Justify was on the radar for a lot of people. And, you know, the maiden win was watched closely, the allowance win was watched closely, and then he won the Santa Anita Derby easily. The Triple Crown was hard fought, but there was never a real serious challenge to him, I didn't think. But for me, what really stood out was Belmont Day, the crowd at Belmont Park. It was, they were loud as the horses went into the starting gate, and for the next 2.5 minutes it only got louder. When Mike Smith got Justified to the top of the stretch and it looked like he was home free, it just went through the roof, the noise. And when he crossed the wire, I don't think I've been to a lot of races here and around the world. I don't remember hearing anything like that ever before.
Well, I do remember hearing something like that ever, and it was in 2015 when American Pharoah won the Triple Crown and broke the 37-year drought. I'm going to say it was just a little bit louder then, even though it was really loud on Saturday. Just the anticipation of all those years finally coming to an end, and it went on forever, too, after the race was over. It's the longest, loudest roar I've ever heard, and I've heard other people say that. And it was also exciting this week to come back home and be around town and hear people talking about it. So it certainly did make an impact out in the world.
Yeah, earlier this week in Washington, we were at a pizza joint, and the next table I heard somebody say something about Justify, so I kind of started listening. They weren't talking about what a great horse he was. They were talking about the tactics they thought were employed in the race to kind of ensure that Justify got an easy lead, that he was able to do what he did. And that's really unfortunate. I think that whether it was an accident, whether or not it was part of a strategy that was employed by Florent Giroux aboard Restoring Hope to help, you know, that's a Bob Baffert trained horse, to help the other Bob Baffert trained horse, I don't know. Justify didn't need that, and it's a shame that that became part of the storyline, but it did.
And that's from people outside the industry, too, who are asking questions of me about it. You know, it's not illegal. I think it's a little bit unsportsmanlike and a little bit cheap. But, you know, I'm not going to complain about it like Mike Rapoli, because Mike Rapoli has no grounds to stand on. He was trying to do the exact same thing with his two horses. I think he has a valid complaint about Restoring Hope, but he can't say it because he had Noble Indy and Vino Rosso, and his instructions to Javier Castellano on Noble Indy was go after Justify, go to the lead, you know, help set a pace that Vino Rosso will benefit from. And Javier decided, you know what, I'm not going to do that. And now the two are at odds, and Rapoli says he's not going to hire Javier anymore. So it's kind of become a bitter mess. What bothers me most, though, is the fact that Restoring Hope had a different owner than Justify, obviously. And that owner wanted to win the race, too. Now, his horse wasn't as good as Justify, and the tactics weren't needed. But the trainer or the jockey, somebody made the decision to be an offensive lineman for Justify. And that's too bad, because that owner got cheated, in my opinion.
Yeah, as far as Rapoli is concerned, you know, there's something about glass houses and stones, you know, people that live in them shouldn't throw them. I think it's time to turn the page and move on and hope that we see Justify in August, maybe September. One place we probably won't see him is on January 1st in Pasadena, California, even though Bob Baffert earlier this week got an official invitation from the Tournament of Roses committee to bring Justify and to ride him, to throw the Western saddle on him like he said he wanted to. And after the Derby, he said, "This is such a beautiful horse. I'd love to just put a saddle on him and ride him in the parade in Pasadena, the Rose Parade on New Year's Day." But I think Bob Baffert politely declined the invitation to do so.
That's too bad. I was really hoping I might get a chance to see that.
That'd be fun, actually.
Well, we have a poll on the website about which Triple Crown race was most impressive, and it's really evenly split so far. What's your vote?
I go with the Preakness because he was hooked all the way by a really good horse, the 2-year-old champion, Good Magic, and fought him off and then held off the other 2 horses, Bravazzo and Tenfold. And, it didn't look visually impressive, but when you consider that he really wasn't trained too hard for that race because he knew that the big challenge was ahead, I thought the Preakness was the most impressive.
I'll go with the Derby because of the fractions that he set. The other front runners fell off, and he kept going. And it is in some ways the hardest race to win because you got the 20-horse field. You got to get through first. Then you can worry about the distance of the Belmont. It doesn't happen the other way around. You have to get that Derby first. So he got that done. And American Pharoah in 2015, that was definitely his worst of the 3 races, and he got through it, and then ended up winning the Triple Crown. Which one did you think was most impressive? Take the poll on our website, PaulickReport.com. Well, Ray, I am going to put on a hat now because you're in Washington, D.C., and I know that 10 years ago this week, you were in Washington, D.C. when the Paulick Report launched. It has been 10 years. So, happy anniversary.
Well, thank you. I was in Washington, D.C. when we launched the Paulick Report 10 years ago. They held congressional hearings into horse racing medication. And guess what? It's 10 years later. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. And it's my understanding that Congress will be having a hearing next Friday onto drugs in horse racing. So it's a deja vu all over again.
Oh, yeah, the horse racing business change is always happening. Not. That's kind of funny. But I'm proud to have been part of almost the whole time that the Paulick Report has existed. Been a part of it since 2010. I've seen a lot of change. Just think about what the Paulick Report looked like. Look at this gem I found from the week that it launched, 2008. This is what the Paulick Report used to look like. And I remember those days. And then it evolved, changed, again in 2010, 11, then another change in 2013 and a couple of years later. So it's constantly evolving, and so has the staff. We have such a great staff of people. Emily in advertising. We have Natalie Voss, who's won awards and done great investigative work. Chelsea Hackbarth has been a great addition. She's very well versed on the backside and writes great people stories. So, it's been great to see it grow.
It has really exceeded beyond my wildest expectations when we started. Just the other day, I looked at some numbers since 2008. We've had 10 million site visitors, 83 million page views. During the recent Triple Crown run, the 5 weeks of the Triple Crown, more than 500,000 visitors to the site, nearly 2 million page views just in that short time. And we try to be a one-stop shop for the industry, but we also really, one of the things that we really do emphasize is shining light in the areas that we think need to be exposed, with the goal always being to enact change, to make the industry better. A lot of people may be critical, say you're too negative, but we try to balance it with positive stories. Over the 10 years, we've had countless positive stories going back to when we did a Good News Friday feature, the Thoroughbred Aftercare, putting the focus that Jen Reitz does so well on former thoroughbreds that have found second, third, or fourth careers. So I'm really proud of the fact that we balance the hard news, the investigative stuff, with stories that should be exposed and should be celebrated.
And don't forget the horse care section, which has come along during
Right.
this evolution. Been a very popular thing. People are learning about horses in different ways. Sarah Coleman and Denise adding their writing to this. So I'm excited about this, and I just want to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Paulick Report. But since you're in Washington, D.C., I'm going to eat the cake.
Well, listen, thanks to our readers, thanks to our advertisers, and thanks to the staff that we have and the staff that, some people that have worked with us in the past. It's gone by really fast, and it's been fun. I look forward to the 20th celebration. In 10 years, I'll probably be in Washington, D.C. for that one, too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to the Match Series. Headed to Monmouth Park this week for presenting this week's Friday show. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.